For many eBay sellers, negative feedback sucks. But after the intro, I'm going to tell you why it doesn't have to suck and what you can do about it. So without any further ado, let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is John from Flippin' Ain't Easy. And as I mentioned, on the other side, negative feedback sucks. Now, it's debatable. There's some sellers who could care less about negative feedback, and there's some sellers on the other side of the spectrum that it'll absolutely ruin their day if they get a negative feedback. And there's all the sellers in between. But negative feedback is one of those things that used to be a really big deal and used to be weighted heavily against your account health on eBay. Now that's been sort of tapered back a little bit, but I got to tell you, it still has some kind of an impact on your account. How much of a negative impact? I don't know, and eBay won't even tell me or won't tell those who ask, because it was asked a few seller check-ins ago, and they thought it was a great question until someone told them not to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And that question was, what is the negative effect on a seller's account within the first 48 hours after receiving a negative feedback? And they said they'd get back to me, and they just haven't done it, and they will never get back to me on that. I can guarantee it. And there's certain things that eBay they don't want us to know. They don't want us to know how the algorithm works. We talk about that. And I also feel, based on the responses, that they don't want us to know, as sellers, how negative feedback works against a seller. So in this video, I want to talk to you about negative feedback. I also want to talk to you about getting negative feedback removed. And I see so many stores out there when I do reviews where negative feedback is left, and you're like, oh, if only they would have tried to get this removed, eBay would have removed it. And they just allow it to sit in their account. But what they don't realize, and maybe they don't care, is that buyers are looking at that. So forget what eBay does to your account, in the background when you get a negative feedback. Let's think about the perception that the next buyer might have when because you have a lot of people who are nervous about buying stuff online, right? Maybe they've been burned before or heard horror stories. So they check your negative feedback. They want to see who they're dealing with. And they come across some negative feedback, may be true, may not be true, but if you don't bother to leave a reply, which you should do every time you receive a negative feedback, and if you don't bother to use the negative feedback removal tool, then you're not doing yourself any justice. And this could be what's turning off potential buyers from buying some of your items. Now, caveat, I can tell you I've seen accounts that just have negative feedback like crazy. But what they have to offset that is they probably have a good pricing model. They probably have good in-demand products. And not every buyer is going to check negative feedback. And some people are just going to buy the item and disregard that. So there's a wide variety of buyers you're trying to cater to and trying to attract, but you don't want to push away a potential buyer because you didn't take the time to manage your account. Now, what I'm also going to show you here later in the video is what's the best way of getting negative feedback removed. So I received an email from Thrift Gorilla a couple days ago and been kind of chatting back and forth, and he had a buyer that had left a negative feedback, and he had tried to reach out to eBay for Business. He tried to get it removed by calling on the phone, and in both times they shot him down. And on the flip side of that coin, I received a phone call from Biscuit Butt. He ended up with a negative feedback, and it was one that I thought, like 90% of the time, eBay is going to tell you, sorry, there's nothing we can do. And he went on and used the feedback removal tool, and within minutes it was removed. So every situation is different, but my thought is do not, the number one thing is do not reach out to eBay. Do not reach out to eBay for business. Do not reach out to a phone rep, because here's the deal, and I found this out. It used to be you get a rep, they just kind of decide to remove the negative feedback. But from my discussions with many reps and I believe one supervisor, this is months ago though, they've informed me that they have a new process. They all have to use the feedback removal tool that you have access to, and it's better for you to just get rid of the middleman, go in to the feedback removal tool and type in your side of what's happened and why this negative feedback needs to be removed. And you usually have to point to where a buyer has violated some type of written policy, and we're going to talk about stuff like that here in a little bit. But real quick, I want to show you how to get to the tool. Log into eBay on the PC. On the upper left hand side, you want to go to help and contact. Click on that. Okay, and then there should be a search bar. You want to click on negative feedback removal. Click on that and it'll have like a link right there. You click on that. Now I wasn't able to show you anymore because I don't have a negative feedback, knock on wood, to have removed. So it's not going to take me any further. It's automatically going to find a negative feedback within the last 90 days, whether it is removable or not. It's going to give you the option to click on that and select a reason. And then that's where you put in your, I think you have 500 characters or 1,000 characters, whatever it is, to put your side of the story. And that's where we win and lose our battles. There's been times I've basically told whoever was reading it, look, please read this through entirely. You know, because sometimes eBay reps have a tendency to rubber stamp things. So that's your first way to combat a negative feedback. So when it comes to using the negative feedback removal tool, you need to know how eBay looks at this tool and how it's used. Can defects, late shipments, or feedback be appealed? So let's just worry about feedback right now. We automatically remove feedback in the instances described in the guidelines below. Things to keep in mind: automatic adjustments happen daily, but please allow 72 hours for them to show in your seller standards dashboard and your feedback profile. Okay. Appeals aren't considered if tracking shows the item is still in transit. Okay. And you may qualify for automatic 5-star detailed seller ratings and other protections outlined again in the seller protection policy. Now, the seller protection policy is very clear. If you are a top-rated seller and you offer at least 30-day returns, now we're talking, the word free isn't in this policy at all. If you offer 30-day returns, then you are eligible for seller protection. So there's certain situations where eBay will try to protect the seller. Now, if you offer returns as a top-rated seller, doesn't have to be free, and let's say the return comes in, you process the return, you receive a negative feedback. Well, within 72 hours, that should be taken off. And I would still use the negative feedback removal tool, but that should be taken off per eBay's own policy here. Now, if a buyer falsely claims an INAD, item not as described, if the report qualifies means, of course, you're a top-rated seller and you offer 30-day returns, okay? We will subsidize the return shipping label cost up to $6. I've only had that happen once, so don't count on that. The subsidy will be credited to your monthly invoice. For transactions to be eligible, you must report the buyer. And, of course, when you're dealing with a return situation and you're refunding less than the full amount, then a report is already made anyway on that. Credits will be applied when we determine the buyer's made a false claim. Now, look at the bottom. It says, we will also automatically remove negative and neutral feedback, defects, and open cases in service metrics. Okay, so if a buyer falsely claims an INAD, that's going to automatically be done. If an item is returned back to you that's damaged or something different, and let's say they just want to sock it to you, and in addition to abusing your item or swapping it out, they want to give you a negative, well, It says an item is returned after it is used or damaged by the buyer. Of course, you know we can deduct up to 50%, but it says including removing any negative and neutral feedback. Now we know buyers can't be given a neutral or negative feedback. So of course that's obvious. That means that a seller can ask or request for this negative feedback to be removed using that tool that we talked about, but it's supposed to be done automatically. But I wouldn't count on the automatic thing happening. If you don't see it, it's gone within 72 hours. Get on there and use that feedback removal tool and make reference to their own policy when you're stating, whenever you're stating that you want the feedback to be removed. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that don't waste your time calling on the phone when you get a negative feedback. Don't waste your time with eBay for Business when you're dealing with a negative feedback. Do what the rep is going to do on your behalf. Go find that negative feedback removal tool. Find the appropriate reason. Take 5 minutes. Think about how you want to word why you feel the negative feedback should be removed, and point to policy whenever applicable. But in Archie's case, he didn't really have a leg to stand on as far as I was concerned, and he put that the buyer may have made a buyer mistake when leaving the negative feedback, and they removed it. So just know that what I've outlined to you in this video doesn't cover all cases where eBay will still remove the negative feedback. In fact, you guys know this. eBay is not only full of glitches with their software, their reps are full of glitches. They make mistakes all the time. So even if you are 100% wrong, you should be in account protection mode and still fill out that negative feedback removal tool and make the best case for your situation to have someone remove that negative feedback. Because you know what, guys? I guess you could say, you know, you take your lumps, you own it if you get a negative feedback, if it's truly deserved. But at the end of the day, why not protect your account? You know, and you shouldn't be at fault. You should be doing everything you can to work with these buyers and to make a positive outcome out of all your transactions. But if you deal with the situation and it's just your fault, before you own it and say, you know what it is, and you're just going to live with it, make an attempt to get rid of it. I'm just telling you, that's what I would do. And if we're truly serious, now we talked about this at the beginning of the video, you have your sellers that are just, they want it off no matter what, and it ruins their day if they don't get it off. And you have the other seller who just could care less. I'd say you want to be somewhere in between. It's not the end of the world if you get a negative feedback. You know, I believe there is a short, very small impact to your account health through the algorithm, but it's not that big of a deal. You want to do everything in your power to get rid of it, but you don't let it ruin your day, okay? And don't be that other seller who just says, I don't care. Take the 5 minutes and protect your account. If you're serious about reselling, if you're serious about making this work, especially if you do it full time, do what you can within your power. We talk about this all the time. If it's in your control, you should be doing what you can to make it go away in this case. So I want your comments down below. Let me know what you think on this topic. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that when I go live, and I probably will this week, you're going to be notified and you can be part of it. So I know a lot of people say, hey, I wish I saw the notification, wanted to be part of it, and by hitting that notification bell, that is what happens. So guys, look, I made a video about negative feedback right now, and I know a lot of you are thinking, well, you know what, why do you waste your time making such a video? Negatives, if you do the business the right way, if you are good to your customers, if you communicate well with your customers, and do everything you're supposed to do as a seller, negative feedbacks don't happen very often. They'll still happen, but when they do, this video should give you at least some direction on what to do when, heaven forbid, that actually happens to you. So guys, negative feedbacks, part of the game, but yet just another example of how flipping ain't easy. And I want you guys to have an excellent rest of your week, and you'll hear from me very soon.